Hello again, everybody. Mr. Reeves back with you, and now we're going to be looking at the surface area of triangular prisms. So just a quick reminder, a prism is a three-dimensional solid that has two faces, at least two faces. Sometimes you can have more, but at least two faces that are congruent and are parallel to each other. Triangular prisms are a little harder for me to draw than rectangular prisms. I did my best there. I hope you can see what it's supposed to look like. So in this case, it is a triangular prism, which means that those bases that we have, they're triangles. So there is one of our triangular bases, and there is our other triangular base, right? So there we go. There is two triangular bases. And then in a triangular prism, you're going to have three other faces. Right? Now in a rectangular prism, we have a total of six. In a triangular prism, we're going to have a total of five, right? Because our base only has three. So I'm going to go ahead and show this one right here. Right? Can you see this one right here? Okay, that is one of our faces. And then let's do, how about we do the bottom? Can you see this bottom here? I'm doing the bottom in yellow, right? That is one of our other faces. And then finally, this back one, and I'm going to go back to orange. This back one right there. Can you see that back one there? Yeah. Okay. So we have a total of five. Again, we have the two purple bases. We had this side face over here that I did in orange. We had the bottom that I did, I think, in green, right? And then we have this other face that I did in orange. So a total of five faces that we're going to find the area of. All right. Okay, so let me actually clear all of that out. Let me draw it in again. Do a quick sketch here. Doing my best right here. Finish the triangle right there. Okay, so let's start. I think a good place to start is with your triangular bases. So let's start with that triangle. All right, so I'm going to call this base 1. And the area of a triangle is 1/2 the base times the height, right? Hopefully that is not something you have to think about too hard anymore. 1/2. Now remember, when you have a triangle, the base goes from the top down to the bottom. Sorry, the height goes from the top down to the bottom. And it makes a 90-degree angle right there with the base, right? So that height, can you see right there? That height that they gave us is 8. So that's our H. And this right here, 12 is our B, right? So it's going to be 1/2 of the base, which is 12, times the height, which is 8. Well, half of 12 is 6. 6 times 8 is 48. 48 what? Square yards, right? And base 2, all right? Bases are always congruent, which means they always have the same area. So this base over here is going to have the same area, so it is also 48 square yards. Great thing is once you find one of them, you know the other one. All right, so then I'm going to call this next one face 1. It's actually called a lateral face, so I'm going to go ahead and put LF for lateral face. And this is one that I colored orange, right? Okay, and if you take a look at that one, do you see that that is 10 by 10? And hopefully you know the area of a rectangle, length times width, right? 10 times 10 is 100. That's going to be 100 square yards. All right. Now again, straight across from it over here, do you see this one right here? Right? That one is also 10 by 10. Do you see how those two are the same? Right? That one and that one, those are the same. All right, so I'm going to call that lateral face 2. And that one is also going to be 100 yards squared because it is the same. And then finally, we have that bottom there, right? And that bottom, can you see that? I'm going to call that lateral face 3. And lateral face 3 is not 10 by 10, it's 10 by 12, right? So it's 10 by 12, and 10 times 12 is 120 square yards. So again, we have all 5 faces, right? So we have our 48, we have our 48, we have our 100, we have our 100, and we have our 120. So again, you should get 5 faces when you do a triangular prism. You should get 6 faces when you do a rectangular prism. All right, so now let's go ahead and jump to our handy dandy calculator and add all these together. So we have 48, and I'm going to do 48 times 2 to remind us that there's always 2 congruent bases. Plus, then we had 100, but we had 2 of those, right? Times 2. And then lastly, we had 120. You will not always have 2 lateral faces that are the same. We did because our triangle here was isosceles, all right? So we add all those together and we get 416. I'm always a little nervous typing this in. You should be too, knowing that it's going to tell you if you did it correct or incorrect. And we did it. Not only did we do it correctly, we are brilliant. All right. So, let's go ahead and see if we get one that looks any different when we skip to the next level. Jumping to the next doesn't look any different, does it? All right, how about one more level up from there? Oh, that one's going to give us words. All right, let's go back and let's just do another one at the lower level that has a picture, and then we'll do one that has words, and then we'll be done. All right? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead in here, and I'm going to draw my picture to fill in. Whoops, I missed. To fill in these other faces that we can't see. Again, guys, it's my best sketch. Not an expert by any means, okay? Okay, so once again, I recommend starting with the triangular bases, right? We're going to have 2 of these bases that are congruent and parallel. They're going to be congruent and parallel. So I'm going to put base 1. The area of a triangle is 1/2 the base times the height, right? 1/2 the base times the height. 1/2 again. Here's our height, right? There's our height right there. That height is 8. And here's our base. Once again, just like in the last problem, our base is 12. So there's our H and there's our B. All right, so here we go. So it's going to be 1/2 of the base, which is 12, times the height, which is 8. All right. Half of 12 is 6. 6 times 8 is 48. So we have 48 square meters. All right. And you remember what's true about base 1 and base 2. They are congruent. They're exactly the same. So I don't have to do the math again. It is 48 square meters. 48 square meters. Okay. And I'm going to do these in the same order I did them on the previous problem. I'm going to come over here and do this one right here. And what did I call that? I think I called it lateral face 1. Lateral face 1 is what I called it, right? And that one is a rectangle. It will always be a rectangle if it is a right prism, which is the kind we're looking at. 10 times 19, and that's going to give me 190. Again, the area of a rectangle is length times width, right? Okay, and just like in the previous example we did, this is an whoops, wrong color. This is an isosceles triangle for our base, which means we're going to get 2 that are the same. Looks to me like IXL is doing a lot of those isosceles ones, but please know that those 2 do not have to be the same. All right, so lateral face 2 is also going to be 10 times 19. And it's 190. Okay, but again, the reason that those 2 were the same is because that one is 10 and that one is 10, right? But these three can be different. There's no reason these two have to be the same. It just makes the problem a little easier, and maybe that's why iExcel is doing it. All right, and then finally, we have our base down here, right? We have our base, right? So now I should be careful calling it the base. I'm calling it the base because it's at the bottom. It's not really the base of the prism. The bases of the prism, there's always two of them and they're parallel. All right, so I'm going to call that lateral face 3. And that one is actually what, 12 times 19? 12 times 19. I'm going to go to my handy dandy calculator and do 12 times 19. And we get 228 square, not centimeters. Sorry, just habit of putting that C there. Meters square. All right, so again, there's 5 faces, right? There's 1, there's 2, there's 3, there's 4. There are 5 faces that we're going to add together because it's a triangular prism. A rectangular prism would have 6 of them. So again, 48 times 2 plus, because it was isosceles, we got 2 of those 190s. 190 times 2 plus, finally, we have a 228, right? And that gives us a total of 704 square meters. All right, are you ready? Did we do this correct? 704. Submit. We are awesome. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and skip to one where they just give us the description with no picture. All right, let's see if we can do this. A triangular prism is 20 yards long and has a triangular face with a base of 24 yards and a height of 16 yards. The other two sides of the triangle are 20 yards. What is the surface area? Okay, so let's see if we can draw it. So I'm going to start off with the triangle, and it says the triangle has two sides that are 20, and let's see, the base of 24. All right, so I'm going to make the base of the triangle, and then it says that we have two that are 20. All right, so I'm going to label this one. It's 24, what, 24 yards? And it says these two are each 20. So iExcel once again is sticking with that isosceles triangle. It's isosceles when those two are the same. All right, and then it says the prism is 20 yards long. What that means is from one base to the other base is going to be 20 yards. Now, I know these are 20 yards and this is longer, so this is not to scale. I'm just spreading it out so we don't get all cluttered up here, okay? So just so you know, this is not to scale, because if this were 20 yards and that were 20 yards, those should be the same. All right, so, but I just didn't want it to be all, didn't want it to be all cluttered up in here. All right, so here we go. I'm going to write not to scale. Now anyone watching this video can't get mad at me. All right, well, they can, but I warned you. They can't say I didn't warn you. All right, so here we go. So there is our triangular prism, and then now I'm going to go ahead and show you the bones inside. Here we go. All right, so I'm going to go like this, and then like that, and then like that. Not so good, is it? That triangle doesn't look like that triangle. All right, but this is a sketch. It's just a sketch. Oh, I did leave off one very important thing, didn't I? Do you know what we're missing? We're missing the height of this triangle, right? Whoops, whoops, whoops. Remember, the height is always perpendicular to the base, right? The height goes from the base to the tip. And that height, they told us, was 16 yards. All right. So that one here, I'm going to do it like they do it. I'm going to put an arrow out here, and I'm going to write 16 yards. All right. So there is our diagram that I was able to make from the picture. And now let's crank out this surface area. All right, so here we go. Base 1, area of a triangle, 1/2 base times height, 1/2 of 24, right? Right there, 24 times 16. All right, so half of 24 is 12. So we want 12 times 16. I'm going to go ahead to my handy dandy calculator, 12 times 16, and I'm going to get 192 square yards. But what do we know about base 2? They are the same. By the way, just to get back to our coloring theme, this right here is base 1. This right here is what? Base 2. And those two will always be congruent. No matter what kind of triangular prism you have, the bases are always congruent. All right. And then what do we have? We have lateral face 1, lateral face 2, and lateral face 3. And I'm going to erase my not to scale here. All right. So here we go. So we're going to have lateral face 1. We're going to have lateral face 2. And we're going to have lateral face 3. Okay, so lateral face 1, and I think I've been doing them orange, right? Right here. Okay. It is a rectangle, which is what? 20 by 20. And again, not to scale. If those were the same, this should look like a square, not a rectangle, right? So 20 times 20, which I happen to know is 400 square yards. All right, and again, as has been happening every one of these IXL problems, because that's what they decided to do, these two orange faces are going to be congruent because that is also 20 by 20. 20 by 20 is 400. But again, I'm writing them separately because it will not always be the case that they're congruent. They're congruent because these are both 20, right? Because that's an isosceles triangle. And finally, we have the bottom. I almost called it the base, not the bottom, right? I mean, not the base. It is the bottom, but it's not the base, right? And that one is 24, right? 24 by 20. And again, you can clearly see this is not to scale because 24 should be longer than 20. All right, so 24 times 20, back to my handy dandy calculator, 24 times 20 is 480. I should have known that because 24 times 2 is 48 square yards. All right. And how many faces are we supposed to have, boys and girls, on our triangular prism? We're supposed to have 5 faces. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Are you counting with me? 4 and 5. And we're going to add all of those together. All right, so here we go. So I'm going to do 192 times 2. There will always be 2 congruent bases on any prism, plus 400 times 2. We got 2 of those because it was an isosceles triangle for our base. And finally, that bottom face was 480. All right, and when you add all those together, you get 1,664 square yards. Here we go. I am so excited to see if I got it correct. 1664. And IXL says that's right. I think that one should have been a brilliant one. All right, and that is the end of this video. I hope you are now an expert at finding the surface area of triangular prisms. Have a great day.